Welcome back to the Blokes podcast. My name is Ryan Hassan. I'm joined by Nico again. Nico, how are you, mate?
Much better than you.
Much better than me. Yeah, I'm battling. I'm going to be straight up front. I've got a massive headache. I had a tough night. I've got Crohn's disease, which has been good. It's not a headache issue, but it's a digestive issue. And so my Buddhist assassin just walked past the window. So
I had a client say, listen to that podcast, and he pissed himself when you were talking about your frog stuff.
Yeah. For those who haven't, go back to 2 episodes ago when I'm in Thailand and my Buddhist assassin started murdering toads that were making noise outside my window.
So you could have a good night's sleep.
Yeah. The other day, because now those particular toads that make that fucking horrible noise, they're mostly gone, pretty much. But there's other ones, they're slightly annoying, but they're just mainly froggy kind of noises. But yeah, Tommy likes to look out the window, so you open the window, he looks out, while we're holding him at the pond, and Melissa was holding him, and then Mon, the lady here, started talking, she's oh, hi, and she's like, oh, you're looking at the frogs, and I'm like, Mel, don't wink or anything, because they'll come over and start murdering them. So I had a bad night with my Crohn's disease last night, digestive stuff going on, and now I've just woken up with a terrible headache. So Nick's going to carry me today. And, I could have postponed, but I'm like, I think Nick's healing vibes. By the end, I reckon I'm going to be 100%.
I've got the shoulders to carry us. I've got the whole world in my hand.
That always reminds me of Con Air. Remember that really creepy character in Con Air singing that song?
I don't. I'm gonna have to revisit it.
Con Air is it's the cheesiest film, but it's so cheesy it's funny.
Yeah. What? We're gonna watch a movie tonight. I want to go old school. What are we? Top Gun or something?
Old school. Old school. So like action.
No, it's for the family sort of thing. I'm going to a girlfriend's house, so
right. And so there'll be her, but also family.
Different ages, yeah.
Yeah, right. Why do you want to go old school? You just feeling it?
Just for fun.
Just for fun. Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah, well, that's on the classic list. I think you've hit the nail on the head. I don't think you're that sick.
There you go. I can't claim to be sick anymore.
You know what? This is going to be your best podcast because it's like Beware the Injured Player.
Yeah.
When someone turns up to footy and they've got a slight hammy or something, because they don't think. Their focus is on that instead of analysing and overthinking everything. So it's like a performance increase.
It's also the in boxing and that kind of thing as well. You got to be wary of when you've got someone a little bit rocked because that's when they can be the most dangerous.
Exactly.
Me and Nick were chatting just before we pressed record about how sometimes we'll have clients and for whatever reason we've just had like fuck all sleep. I might have had Tommy awake all night or a day like today. And it's like you're worried, you're like, oh, I'm not going to be able to give my normal self to the client. And they end up being some of the best sessions because you're kind of so tired that yourself gets out of the way a lot of the time. It's a really interesting thing. So, yeah, look.
Strap yourselves in, listeners.
This could be
belter today.
BOG stuff today. I'm going for it. So,
totally.
Last week, we were going to talk about Bronnie Ware's 5 Regrets of the Dying, and we never got to it because we started talking about being an empath and a sensitive man, which is awesome. So we're locked and loaded and ready to go. So Bronnie Ware, for those who don't know, wrote a book many years ago now, might have been 10 or so years ago. She was a palliative care nurse, so watched thousands and thousands and thousands of people die, which is really interesting. And Nick, you've said this before, your mum is a palliative care nurse.
She is, yes. And she's also written a book on watching many people die as well. So
interesting. We might get some discussion around that as well, because it is such an interesting thing. Like we're very sheltered as human beings, I think, around death and that kind of thing. I remember someone I knew quite well a while ago when they were younger, their parents never even took them to funerals and that because they didn't want to expose them even to that part of death. And and so no surprises as they got older, they were very, very sensitive to anything that wasn't going well. But we live in a society...
That's similar to parents who the hover parents, the helicopter parents that stop their kids from getting dirty and muddy and everything. They grow up with, they get sick a lot older as adults.
Yeah.
Don't they?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, they do. Yeah.
if you protect them, if you don't condition at an early age, it has a negative effect later on. And I had to jump in with it because I knew I was going to forget it. So
yeah, it's we have the same thing now with Tommy. It's like so interesting because what I've been trying to watch is we got all this information and we deal with a lot of kids with their childhood stuff, and obviously I'm all the health and everything, and you have all these ideas of this is how we want to raise him, and it's a very conceptual idea in your mind, and then he comes along and then you understand like why parents do things the other way, because it's just in the moment things get very hard. In the moment you want to protect. In the moment you want to do this or do that. So it's I'm just sort of watching the internal battle within myself. It's like stick to what you said you were going to do, what is going to be best for him in the future, even if that's a little bit harder in the moment. So it's just it's very, very interesting.
Theory, but practice is so much more difficult. You can have the best ideas in the world, but a lot of the time it's not realistic.
Yeah. I remember when I was a tradie, and when I was an apprentice, like years ago now, and air conditioning mechanic, and you'd obviously start off, "G'day, Polly. Polly's just come into the shot. She's got something to say."
Pretty sure she does.
Obviously at start you're an apprentice and you're working with a qualified mechanic, so you're going with them every day and doing the jobs. Then you start trade school and you're learning all this theory, and you go through all this stuff, and then they got to a point where it's only like second year I think, and I started going out and doing jobs on my own. That first 2 weeks of doing jobs on my own learnt more than the previous 2 years combined because all of a sudden the theory became practice, but also when it's yourself, it's on you. It's like I remember working with someone else that in the back of your mind you're like, oh, if this is a fuck up, it's going to be their fault and not mine. I'm just the apprentice. So it's like it's not until you're really in the trenches that you start to learn a lot about yourself and your craft.
Yeah, well, it's character revealing, and you got to dig a lot deeper, and it is on you. I've got a client who is for years been glass house throwing stones at people. Like he's always hated the people in authority because they're not doing it properly. And I said to him, "But you never step up. You never put yourself in that position."
Yep.
So he's now just opened his own business, and he's said it's been so interesting to go, oh shit, now I'm accountable for everything. I have to do everything. So it's he had all these good theories of this should be done, that should be done, blah blah blah, but there was no responsibility that came with it. Now he's got all that responsibility. He's weighing it up from very different place.
Yeah, it's funny. Because I was an employee for so many years, and then went from that to running a business and having staff. I remember back when I was an employee and I'd be cursing the boss. I'm like, oh, he's making all this money off me and blah, blah, doing all that. After I started running a business, I would look back. I felt like calling him up and apologising. I'm like, you poor fuck. I didn't know how much stress and everything you were going through.
What about your first clients? Do you remember? Like, I came out of study and then just went straight into opening my own business. Just hung my shingle out, and I'd never run a business, no understanding of how to run a business. Just start seeing clients, probs. But you go from the safety and comfort of working with your classmates as pretend clients and being familiar with them, to then having a complete stranger walk in your door and paying you to help and assist them. That's a massive leap. It is,
but it's a leap that we have to take. And I think that approach that you took, and this is the approach that I took, and I know Melissa, my partner, it's the approach she took, is just starting to see clients is the best way to do it, because I see people all the time in this industry just getting certificate after certificate after certificate. It's like, okay, I've done my NLP. God, I'm really struggling over here.
You'll be right.
I'm going to power through.
Keep going.
I've got my NLP certification. I'm going to go see clients, and they go to start seeing clients like, no, I need to go and do my hypnotherapy now, or and then it just keeps going like that. And the thing is, no amount of certifications will be enough, because I know you can attest to this, Nick. You learn so much from your clients, it's ridiculous. And we're doing certifications now. So in our root cause therapy that we do, so we're running certs in that, so people get all the information, how to do it, here's the scripts, here's how you set up a session, blah blah blah. But then the whole thing is do it over and over and over and over again, because those, especially those early clients, you learn so much about yourself.
Yeah, but if you keep chasing certificates, all that shows is that you're a person who can go and learn what someone else thinks, and you can go and study. Like, I know I'll go and study, I'll get a certificate, and then I will throw most of it away because it's irrelevant to me. I will pull a modality apart and put it back together in a way that's going to work for me in the way that I operate. So, and yeah, I think I learnt more from my first 5 clients than I did in my whole schooling life, because I was like, oh, this works, oh, that doesn't work, oh, this is shit, that's shit. I know.
And you find what works for you, and then you only by doing sessions do you start to then really progress, because you start seeing these patterns in people, which the certificates can't teach you.
10 years down the track, I've had my practice for 10 years, and I've created my own methodology pretty much based on all of my experience of working with hundreds, maybe thousands of clients, because it's because you do learn so much from it. You learn it's not about you and what you know or what you think you know, it's about them and what they need, and all you've got is some tools or resources to guide them and help them. So it's I know I had this conversation with my supervisor, who we have to check in with every month to hold my accreditation, and he said, how are you? And I'm like, mate, I'm busy, I'm just flat out. And he's like, why? I said, what do you mean? He's like, you're my 5th supervision for the day, and everyone else has seen 1 or 2 people. Why are you so busy? And we had a good chat about it. We figured out that most of those other people are the certificate chasers. They're doing courses in how to make $100,000 a year and how to do this and how to run your business. They're trying to be better business people, where I've always had a different philosophy, where if I invest in myself, I am my business, really. So I'm going to outsource all of the other shit, all the accounting and book work and all that stuff. Get rid of that. I don't want to make $100,000 a year and be focused on that. I want to be focused on being the best person I can be, and any training or study I do improves me, which improves my business, because my business is an extension of me.
Oh, 100%.
So they're all chasing the money. I'm all trying to better myself. And I think that was the biggest difference between them and me. Yeah,
that's a classic. Remember, Jim Rohn used to say that, work on yourself more than your business, and the business will take care of itself. Yeah, it's so true.
I haven't heard that, but fuck yes, that's spot on.
I think that a lot of the certificate chasing, this is where lived experience practitioners have a little bit of a advantage, I think, if they think in this way, because the certificate chasers, that whole thing's imposter syndrome. It's like, I've got my certificate now, I actually receive money and help people, and then that voice in the back of the head says, who am I to help someone? You don't deserve this. You still got issues. Why would you help someone? Then it's like, shit, I better go get another certificate. The thing is, everyone has imposter syndrome to some degree, no matter what they do.
Because we've never been... All it is our comfort zone. We're just finding the edge of our comfort zone, and the anxiety pops up and creates all these mental barriers as to why we can't do it, because it's trying to protect us and save us from embarrassment, of failing, of not being good enough, of not being perfect. I had imposter syndrome for about 5 minutes, I reckon. And then, because I thought, I had this bookshelf, and I'm like, I've got to fill this bookshelf with all the books, and every client that comes in here has to know that I've read all these books, and blah, blah, blah. But I had this thought, I'm like, that's going to take me decades to do. And if I wait until then I'm not going to see anybody.
Yeah, and then you probably like get to that point and go, no, I needed more books. That wasn't enough books.
So I scratched that completely, and I just went, fuck it, we're open for business. And my first client, I had to help stop smoking with hypnotherapy, and it was successful. But I was terrible thinking back. I'm looking at that and I'm going, oh no. I'm going to have to go and listen to the Shame podcast because it was... But he was also brilliant because he was raw and he had some belief and he tried and he kept going. So that's I think we've spoken about that. They've done all these studies about what makes people successful, and it's not how much you know, it's how persistent you are.
No, that makes sense. I mean, like, you just have to start, because if you're not looking back on yourself when you started and being embarrassed, then you haven't grown since then, have you?
No, you need to experience all of those, oh God, that was terrible moments, because there's where your growth lies. There's where you're going to become so much better.
Yeah, and then it's by getting the result with those clients where you're like, oh, fuck, that imposter syndrome then starts to go away, because someone starts going, hey, I've stopped smoking now, and I've been smoking for this long, and this is how much money I saved, thank you so much. Then you're like, oh, I can do this. And I think that's with any profession. So yeah, I don't know how we got onto that.
Links into what we're talking about, because it's there was one of, I'll just bring it up. Where was it? Messenger. The 5 top regrets of dying.
Let's just start at number 1.
Okay. So I wish I had had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me.
Isn't it? Number 1. This was the most common regret of all. When people realize that their life is almost over and look back clearly on it, it's easy to see how many dreams have gone unfulfilled. It's really sad, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
Most people had not honoured even a half of their dreams and had to die knowing it was due to choices they had made or not made. Yep.
All right, here's a question for you.
Yep.
If you were to kick the bucket right now,
I feel like I'm close.
That's what I'm saying. Would you? Are you content? Do you feel, looking on the life that you've had so far, are you happy? Like you've taken a leap of faith. You're living in Thailand. You've started your own business. You've overcome heaps of shit. Could you die happy right now? Take away, not seeing your family and everything.
Yeah. It's a very good question. I have really mixed thoughts about that. I'm content with what I've achieved in my life. I'm not afraid to die. I don't have this sort of fear of death. I'm just sort of, if I did kick the bucket now, I'm like, okay, cool, that's fine.
Well, there's not a lot you can do about it, is there?
No, it's the one certainty that we have in life. And this is why it's so funny that we're so shielded from death. Like we just, I don't think I've ever seen a dead body myself, which is, that's really quite shielded from death, which is this thing that's so ever present. The one certainty that we have, and we are quite shielded from it. And this is why we get all these hang-ups around it, because we're like, and people are like, I want to live forever. I want to, aging is only, I hear all these longevity people talk about living to 200. I'm like, fuck that. I think 80's probably maximum for me. But when I get there, I'll probably be like, I want a bit longer. But
have you seen? Well, you're only going to say that if you're not content with the life that you've lived. I think if you've lived a shallow, empty life, and you're not appreciative and you're not living in gratitude for what you've had, then you're going to want to extend it.
Yeah.
Because you're constantly seeking more. You're trying to fill a void that.
Yeah. So that seeking, this is the other side to it that comes up for me, is that I feel like there's a lot more love I can give, and I think that in my head right now with my life, I'm not massive on big goals and that kind of thing, but I don't really have any external goals. All of my goals are now internal, And so I have this sort of goal for myself around having this level of, I suppose, peace in my being, knowing that yes, we go up and down all the human emotions and that, but this level of peace, which I'm working towards, and I'm not there yet. So then that's the part of me that would say there is something unfulfilled. But then if you were to say you're going to die in 5 minutes, look back on your life, I'd be like, fuck, I had a fair go, I had a fair crack at it.
Go for it. I talk to clients about, because all my clients come in and they want to be happy, and they come to see me because they're not happy. And I say, what is your definition of happiness? And majority of the time they're talking about external stuff, or being in a happy relationship, or wishing this person was still alive, or whatever it is. And if you look it up in the dictionary, the definition of happiness is to be content. And so people ask, well, how can you be content and not rest on your laurels? Because if you're content, it's just like, whatever, I'm content. I'm content to live in this gutter. I'm content to stay in this shitty job. I'm just content. So you have to marry, I'm doing the best I can every day. Every day I'm doing the very best I can. But marry that with another belief that tomorrow is an opportunity for me to stretch myself a little bit more. So I'm getting into bed content with how I am and how my day's been and how my life currently is. But there's no such thing as perfection, so tomorrow's an opportunity for me to try and better it in some way. It doesn't mean that what I have is bad or wrong, or who I am is shit, because you've got to bring evolution into it. There's constant change, there's constant growth. So the version I am today is amazing and wonderful, but tomorrow I can improve on him. But that doesn't mean that today's one is lesser.
Yeah, it's a really good lesson in not having that black or white thinking. It's sometimes good. I heard someone speak once around, it's like looking at your child. So say if you had a child, they're 3 years old, and you said, do you love your child? You'd be like, of course. Of course I fucking do. Are they just are they an amazing being? Are they perfect? Yes. I love them so much. It's like, okay, do you want to change them at all? It's like, no, just let them be who they are. It's like, cool. What I'll do, I'm going to freeze them and they'll stay 3 years old forever. Is that what you want? And they're like, no. You're like, why not? It's like, well, I want this being to grow. I want them to grow and go to school. I want them to make friends. I want them to grow up and they might get married or whatever it is. I want them to experience human life. It's like, okay, so you see them as perfect now and you don't want to change anything about them, yet you still want to see them grow. So it's like those two things are allowed to coexist. So it's like if we looked at ourselves more that way and said, I'm perfect, I'm doing the absolute best that I can, there's nothing I want to change about me, but tomorrow, yes, I'm open to evolving, then we can do that. But it's also, I see a lot in like, when you explain to people, maybe in spiritual circles and stuff, about this whole idea of just letting go of expectation, being content and all that. And there's this, I think, false belief that if we just let everything happen and let go of expectation, then we stop interacting with the world. And we just let things happen, to us.
Well,
but
there's a difference between being content and being complacent, I think. And it sounds like what you're talking about is complacency. There's just letting go completely and giving up and just, okay, well, you don't have to put any effort or energy. Being content takes a lot of work.
Oh yeah, big time. That's where everyone, like you said, that's where people are striving. But I'm like, if someone says, oh, well, if I just am content and I'm living in the gutter or that kind of thing, it's like, give me the gutter. Because you want the big house and the car and everything so that you feel content. But if you feel content in the gutter, like, you're fine. That's what you're actually going for, that feeling.
Well, and once again, in all those studies, it's the happiest people in the world are those with the least amount of materialistic possessions, those living in the villages, because they've got the sense of community and the belonging and the connection, and it's an inherent happiness. It's not an outsourced, external, codependent happiness. I need this car, I need this job, I need this much money, I need. you can't be content when you're needy.
No, no, yeah. I've noticed that being here, actually. We're in quite a quiet part of Koh Samui, and it is a very kind of community feel. And, we met a couple of ladies, older ladies, maybe in their 50s or so. And because with, COVID and everything happening here, they're not getting as much help than a lot of other countries are from their government. And they were deep frying cicadas, like these big bugs that are found in the trees because they had no food. But they weren't complaining about it. They were getting around having a laugh and everything, and then we ended up, giving them some money and stuff. But they were, I don't know, it's like you see people complaining because they can't make a car insurance repayment or something, and it's just a different world.
That's that Seneca quote: "If you believe you have been harmed, then you have been harmed." So your mind is complicit in your suffering. These women that you're talking about are an amazing example of how resiliency in action, of how they don't have these expectations that this should happen and that should happen. It's just they're being the bamboo instead of the oak tree. They're being the water. They're just
big
going
time
with the flow. It's just and they're not focusing on the problems in inverted commas. They're focused on doing what they can do. Controlling the controllables is something I talked about with my clients all the time. And these women are prime examples of that. I cannot control what the government does. I cannot control what's happening in the world with the coronavirus. And they're not codependent on the government making them happy. It's just, right, what can we do? Cicada time. All right,
yeah.
Cool.
And then we saw them a few days ago. So this is like a week after initially. And she's on the scooter, like down the main road, and she stopped to say good day, and she's got a big bag, and she had like some flowers and little things she'd made up from her garden, and also she thinks she'd been growing some herbs and stuff, and she was just riding around to seeing if anyone wanted to buy them, right? So she's just, trying all these different stuff, and she sold quite a lot, which is awesome, so she had money to eat for a few days. And but also the thing that struck me even more than her pivoting, if she was an entrepreneur, she pivoted her business. Hear that all the time now. and so not only did she do that, wasn't what struck me. What struck me was how much fun she was having. She wasn't like, oh fuck, I've got to ride around and do this because I can't do my normal business of massage and that kind of thing. She was like, yeah, I went around and these people bought some, and she's just having an actual good time in a time where most people would be complaining. It was really beautiful.
Well, your attitude is everything. Your attitude towards life and towards things not going your way. Your attitude plays such an important role in all of this.
Such a role.
I went to. I got invited to go and have a chat with the National Mental Health Commission CEO last year. So I had one-on-one time with her, and she just wanted to learn about the way I approach mental health and well-being. And I told her I'm pretty different to a lot of people in the way that I'm more proactive, and I'm trying to get people to... I had this conversation with a client this morning. We're not teaching this stuff in school. We're not... The focus is on intellectual development, not emotional development, not personal development. And I think that's creating a pretty fucked ripple effect. And so her and we had a lot of alignment, a lot of similarities in our philosophies. And then there was a big town hall meeting that night. And because she was going around the country and she wanted to listen to people in the system and what was working and what's not working. And I took a couple of clients down with me, and we sat at a table, and we left and we had a discussion in the car park. And I'm like, what did you guys think of that? And they all said, we can't believe how much everyone's complaining that the government wasn't doing enough. And the government should come and fix this. The government needs to come and do this for me. And it took me back to when I was at rock bottom, because I was expecting Veterans Affairs and the government to fix my problems. And so all my clients said hardly anyone in that room was willing to be responsible for their own happiness. And that woman on the scooter, she was an embodiment of someone being responsible for their own happiness.
Yeah, when she had like so many more reasons than most people on the planet to complain. She was literally beaming, like she was like a being of light in that moment on her scooter.
Can we just replicate her and just spread her around the world?
I'm going to bring her back.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring her back to Australia and do a tour.
No, because she'd probably become very unhappy.
Yeah.
She'd be like, what is all this materialistic? And everyone go and watch this. What was that video I sent you? The
Economics of Happiness.
Economics of Happiness. So it's all about globalization versus localization, and how localization is such a better system because everyone's so much happier. But,
that's true. So let me ask you this, Nick. So we're still on this first point, but I still want to stay on it for a bit. It says, I wish I had the courage to live the life true to myself. What does that mean? We hear this, a lot of people just say this word, I want to be more true to myself. What does that actually mean? How does someone know when they're being true to themselves and not just acting off patterns?
I talk to everyone about being genuine and authentic, and that is so important to me. And I know when I've strayed from my path. I know when I'm not being genuine and authentic because I become very reactive. I become very hypersensitive. I become easily emotionally disturbed. I'll start drinking more. I'll start eating more. I'll start, I will stop being well. My well-being diminishes. So I know when I'm on my path and when I'm living a life that's genuine or authentic to me. I don't know, it's hard to put into words, but I can just feel it. I feel connected, and I feel grounded, and I feel present, and I feel empowered, and I feel in the driver's seat.
Mm-hmm.
I'm speaking, I'm using my voice, I'm saying no, all these things, I guess. But myself is constantly changing as well. It's constantly evolving. So I've got to make sure that I'm not trying to freeze things, as you said before, freezing the 3-year-old. There's a really good book on simple Buddhism, and he talks about our human minds. When we create beliefs are just trying to capture and freeze things in time. And I don't know, because I understand that we're in this constant evolution, we're in this constant change. My true life, or living the life of me, is just trying to go down the river of life as much as possible instead of hanging on to it out of fear. It's just every day living more and more in trust. I'm going to trust myself to resign from this job because I know deep down it's not where I'm meant to be. And it's listening to that internal voice going, dude, this isn't us, this isn't where we want to be. It's been a chapter of our life, but it's reached its expiry date, so let's let go. I had to end a relationship last year because that voice came up and it said, mate, it's reached the end of its expiry date, time to move on. Now I've done it with work, my own business. I pivoted a couple of years ago. I went from state of mind health to mind fit because it didn't feel like it was flowing anymore, and I wasn't happy within it. So if I'm not happy within it, I've got to change it. Not expect it to change on its own accord.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's
Does
really
that answer the question? Or?
It does. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So what I take from that is it's a real awareness of the internal and the external, and just making sure when they're not matching up. So it's like you're aware of this feeling state, and that's kind of different for everyone. You feel like you should do something, but you're not. But then if you don't listen to that voice, then the well-being side of things externally starts to diminish, and that's when we start to maybe, to have a few more drinks than we normally would, or we get a little bit more frustrated and narky at our partner, or that kind of thing. So you've just got to be kind of aware of both of those signs, because a lot of those little external signs are just feedback that we can use, and generally it is feedback from not listening to that voice deep within us.
Yeah, well, I said to my girlfriend a couple of weeks ago, I need some time to go and sort myself out because I'm very far away from being myself at the moment, and so and that only took, you know, 4 or 5 days, but I just needed some space to recalibrate, realign, sort of,
Hmm.
um, just clear some shit out and get thinking straight again.
Yeah, yeah. So it's also, yeah, you said something important in there before around just saying no. I think that's a good sign when we're on the path because we're in a culture where we just say yes to bloody everything
You
because
know,
we're trying.
people pleasers.
Yeah, yeah, people
Because we want
pleasers.
people to like us. Remember those three toxic beliefs: I must be loved
Mm,
slash liked. So everyone's in this perpetual habit of saying yes, yes, let's please everyone, let's do everything for everyone. But in doing so, they neglect themselves, and
yes,
that's
yeah,
where you're not living your life.
yeah, and then that breeds resentment, and it's like it can be. It's very subtle too. Like it's just this little bit of resentment here, little there, little there, little there, but all of a sudden, over time, the load gets very, very high, and that's when we just get. Yeah, we just tend to be pissed off at everyone and everything.
But the second half of that is not the life others expected of me,
Yep.
and that's the thing. I think the most important word in the world for me is freedom.
Hmm.
And that's not free of responsibilities. That's not free of to do what I want and just to buck the system and all of that stuff. But it's to live free, freely, authentic and genuine.
Hmm.
So if I'm living under other people's expectations, I do not do well.
Mm.
It's not a good version of Nick that comes to the surface there. And funnily enough, I was in the army for 4 or 5 years. So, um, but even in that, I felt free. Even though I was in the system, I still felt free because I was choosing to be there, and I was loving the physicality of it and the growth and the challenges and all that sort of stuff. So it was still, I was still genuine and authentic. But I've been in other situations where things have been imposed on me,
Mm.
and that's why, with this whole lockdown thing, we're in isolation. I didn't feel free, and I realised that was affecting me. So I listened to my internal voice again, and I switched it around into solitude. I'm
Mm.
choosing to go into solitude.
Right.
So that was me. Freedom is essentially feeling empowered, and so nothing's changed out there. We're still in lockdown, but I created an internal shift which linked me back into feeling empowered and free and genuine and authentic.
Yep. So you linked it back to what your true self actually wants.
Yeah, so I'm not living under the life of expectations of the government to not go out.
Right.
I'm choosing to live in solitude because it's in mine and everyone's best interests.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. With me, that really resonates as well. I think I have similar kind of core values around that kind of stuff. I always, for me, looking back, like the normal shit that society says you should do, like doesn't really fulfill me at all.
Oh
like
no.
like the whole, get the really safe, secure job, earning the good money, and then get married, and then get the white picket fence and all that stuff. Like I ticked all those boxes, but I just wasn't happy. It's like, and then you get really caught up because I had one of those beliefs that we spoke about that everyone needs to like me. So that's why most people are really torn because there's a lot of people who know they want to start doing something different that's outside the norm, but they don't do it because then they're like, I'm going to get ridiculed by friends, family, whoever it is, because it's different. And I was definitely caught in that boat. Like that whole and that stuff does fulfill a lot of people, but for me it just doesn't. And so that's why now, like, starting a business with no experience and just starting to run an addiction clinic with no history in the industry, moving online and moving overseas, having a baby out of wedlock, all that kind of stuff. Like that stuff actually gets me more fired up than having all this stability, like, which is like other people will look at that life and go, fuck, that's a bit intense. But for me, it's not intense at all. Like the other life is much too intense for me.
Mundane. It's Yeah. Well, I've had the white picket fence as well, and it didn't suit me. Um, and I don't know why. It's just once again, it takes all kinds in this world.
It does.
So, and I think we need to be more respectful of that. And if you're a parent, a father that grows up and imposes your beliefs onto your children and expects them, and it's culturally like Chinese are pretty hard on that. The Japanese, it's expected of you to do this, and then you do that, and then you do this, and this is how it is. Those expectations, there's no room to move there. The parameters that you're operating within are so tight, and that's where the lack of freedom comes into it.
Yeah.
You feel trapped, and when we feel trapped, what are we going to do?
Well, just bad things will happen.
Yeah,
We want to escape.
Yeah, we're gonna do that in different ways. We're gonna escape reality by going to coping mechanisms: alcohol, drugs, social media, gambling, whatever. We're gonna escape the relationship by having an affair, or we're gonna try and escape the family by just running away. We're gonna lash out. We're gonna fuck off because we're hurting. We're gonna hurt people around us.
Yeah,
Damn,
it's funny
hell.
in Japan, because there's that culture of it's your worth when you're a male. Your worth is based on how much you can work and provide. And I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but they've actually got a word now because it happens so often where men work themselves to death. Like they literally die at their desk or they die on the way to work. It's like ikori, or I don't know the name, but they've got a term for it in the dictionary because it happens so often.
How sad's that?
Oh, mate.
Reflection on our...
Yeah. Just trying so hard to feel worthy and kill yourself in the process. It made me think like that's when I went and told my mum and dad, because after I shut them out for a while when I was a drug addict, and then the first time I went back and I told them what had been happening, which was, very, very tough moment, telling them that your son's a drug addict, he's a drug dealer, he's been arrested and all this kind of stuff. And then I remember my dad saying, just purely out of love, he's just like, we just got to get you back, get your old air conditioning job back and get some stability. And I knew it was coming from love and that, because what happened, the issue for me was when I had all those nice things set up in my life, the white picket fence, the job and all that, I wore the mask of, yes, everything's perfect. And so externally, friends and family, that's why it was such a shock for people when they heard what was going on with my marriage breakup and then with the drug addiction, because they thought everything was perfect. And, this is the last person we expect something to be going wrong for. So externally, that represented my dad was like, this is the time when he was okay and everything was stable. But I wasn't. I was just completely unfulfilled, which then led to the drug addiction. So I knew the future was going to look very different.
Yeah. But that's you escaping. And the Japanese thing links into the second one. I wish I hadn't worked so hard.
That ties in very well, doesn't it? I didn't plan that.
So you're on form. Best on grade.
Hey, look at me go. Yeah. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Yeah. What a funny one this is.
Another important word for me is balance. And that's something I'm always mindful of, consciously and subconsciously, I think.
Yep.
So I only choose to see X amount of clients per week because I need time to recharge. I need time to manage my knee problem. I need time to look after my mental health. I need to do my Pilates and stretching and yoga and meditation and all that sort of stuff. So I've learnt to work smart instead of hard. And I've actually lost a few friends to do that, especially tradies, because they're so conditioned to working 40, 50, 60-hour weeks, and that's amazing. So when they see me working 30 hours a week, they're like, you're so lazy. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. We've seen so many clients over the journey who have been tradies and will just work their asses, so 6-7 day weeks for weeks and weeks on end, and then invariably they'll go on cocaine binges for a whole week and blow all the profits they made in that time because once again it's completely imbalanced. So it's like the pendulum swung all the way this way, and guess what? It's going to come back equal the other way. And then they're like, "Why the fuck did I work so hard when I just blew it all in a couple of days?"
Exactly, it's all been for nothing, really.
Yeah,
I see it with tradies especially that reach the end of their working life and they retire, and then they're just so lost because they were so conditioned to work in 50, 60 hour weeks that when they retire, the pendulum swings to the other end and they've got 0 hours to work. They're completely lost. They have no idea. And a lot of them die. Just, when the Japanese die from working themselves to death, I've heard a lot of stories of men dying at retirement because they've got nothing to do.
Yeah, it's
purpose.
like purpose. That's the word. Yeah, it's like my identification was here, and my purpose, and that goes away.
Who am I if I'm not working 60 hours a week?
Yeah, it's like it just holds them together. It's just interesting. This happened with both of my grandparents. Is that both grandfathers got quite sick, and they ended up dying first. So at the end of their life, my nans that would have to look after them, and both nans were like just so switched on, so with it, for being old. And then it happened in both cases. As soon as my grandfather, so their husband, passed away, they just went downhill dramatically fast. Yeah, both got Alzheimer's, dementia, and then it was so interesting to watch because that's like a little old school mentality. Like I'm the wife and look after her. Now I'm really needed because they're sick, so my purpose is them. Same thing with the men with work. That purpose goes away, then we just it goes. Everything falls away very quickly.
Very fast. And it leads to suicide. It leads to lots of bad shit when that balance isn't there. So,
it's funny. It said with this one, the works are hard. It says in the next line, this came from every male patient I nursed. Everyone.
Wow.
They missed their children's youth and their partner's companionship.
Yeah. I had a client say to me, I can provide anything for my kids. I can give my kids anything they want. And I said, can you give them a hug when you drop them to school in the morning? And he burst into tears.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh. And so his focus was on materialistic money. I can give them iPods and iPads and all this shit. Well, all they wanted was a hug and some love.
Yeah.
So you can't provide that if you're not there. You fucking
Yeah. This is why we took the business online at the end of last year, because it's like, I've sat with that many people when they've been back in memories where they're just like, I just wanted my dad there, and they're crying, even though they had all the best toys and iPads and everything. And it's like, I can't make this mistake.
And the funny thing is, I don't have kids, so I could work 50, 60 hours, and I do have a workaholic nature. I think I have, especially setting up my business. I was working till 2, 3 in the morning and really smashing it. So I can work extremely hard when I need to, but I'm not willing to do it long term because my focus is on being sustainable.
Yeah, that's the word, isn't it? Sustainable.
And it comes from being in balance.
Yeah, and I find
You have to give yourself permission. You got to give yourself permission to do it. That's the thing. Stop looking at everyone else's expectations of what and trying to live up to their expectations and make them happy. And say, fuck it, I'm giving myself permission to make myself happy. What's really going to make me happy? What's going to feed my soul?
Yes.
Is going to work, seeing all these clients, running a successful business, but then taking a Friday off and playing some golf, or heading away for a long weekend, or just I don't know. Giving yourself permission is paramount.
100%, because then you stop that resentment build up. And when you stop that resentment build up, you're a better friend, you're a better partner, you're a better dad, whatever it is. Like, all areas of your life benefit from that. But then we keep doing it because we're like, no, I've got to provide or do this or do that. But we just neglect ourselves at the same time, which, it is sad. But that restraint thing, I think it's very important. Let's go to...
The last line in that says, all of the men I nursed deeply regretted spending so much of their lives on the treadmill of a work existence. The treadmill, it's like a hamster in a wheel, isn't it? Just going around and around.
I wonder how much this will change now, because obviously that's a byproduct of the Industrial Revolution. Is like the whole school system was based on that. So the school system has taught intellectual intelligence so that you can go and work on a in a factory on a production line and we can churn out products and everything. But obviously the Industrial Revolution really falling away now in manufacturing, and so I think the work is looking very different. So yeah, I'm not sure the answer to that. I'm not sure how much that's going to change.
I like to believe that we're going to learn a lot of lessons from this coronavirus thing, and it's going to be a catalyst for a lot of change. But I'm also a realist as well. And some things will change, but by and large, we'll go back to what we know.
Yeah. Who knows? All right, number 3. I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. Yeah, I like this one. This is good. This is like the whole thing. It's like when you said, what if I kick the bucket right now, and oftentimes when if you tell people you got one day to live, what are you going to do? And it's like, I'd go to mum, dad, my friends, I'd go to everyone and tell them that I love them. It's like, why don't you do it anyway?
Because we can't. There's limited beliefs. We can't. We've got this conditioning that doesn't give us the freedom to go and do it.
Yeah, what does this one mean to you, Nick?
I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. Well, my first thought was what we spoke about last week, with my dad saying, stop being so bloody sensitive, when I was a kid and when I was growing up. But I think, once again, there's a balance. We can be too expressive, we can be too emotive, we can be too needy to talk about everything. So it's finding that balance of, alright, this is something I need to get out in the open and discuss, or I need to stop living in so much fear of letting people know how I feel about them. So it depends what the feelings are. If the feelings are a byproduct of your existence and the world that you've created and being affected by everything, then we need to go and find a sounding board and talk. People feel so much lighter when they get something off their chest. So they stop feeling suffocated. But we can also become addicted to that too, which is what I think part of the problem is with regular psychology. Just come back next week, and people get conditioned to thinking that they have a problem and having to talk about things to the nth degree. So finding that balance between, all right, when I'm affected by life, I'm going to have an emotional reaction, and sometimes I'll need to get that off my chest, but sometimes not everything needs a reaction as well. And then my genuine and authentic feelings about how I feel about you, I'm not going to live in fear of them, but I'm not going to pour that onto you either, because that can suffocate people as well.
True.
I love very deeply and very openly, and I've had to temper that because it's a double-edged sword. So I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. I think comes from people who are emotionally retarded in a literal sense. Their capacity to express has been retarded maybe early on in their life. But I think the opposite can be true for some people. I wish I wasn't so expressive. I wish I had kept a bit to myself.
Yeah. Which in both instances, they're not dealing with the emotion, really. Because if someone's expressive and then keeps having to express it, then there's obviously something still to express there. There's not they're venting, but they're not actually dealing with anything.
But they're also, we create so many of our feelings by how we process things and the filters that we, the mental filters that experiences pass through. So if those mental filters aren't really healthy and in proportion, if they're only black and white, then we're going to have so many more emotions to deal with.
That's true. And it also leads on from the last one, I think. It's that when we don't express our feelings, like, hey, I need to take this time for myself, or hey, I need to do this, or no, I can't do that, then not expressing ourselves in that way is going to cause that resentment and not feeling good.
Yeah, we'll go back to that William Glasser's 5 basic human needs. Power, belonging, freedom, fun, survival. The freedom to speak our minds is really important. If we're tiptoeing around on eggshells all the time, we're going to feel very trapped again. So we're going to need to try and escape it at some stage.
And people feel that way in their home life. I know many people, and then also feel that way at work. So it's like you never get a break. It's like if I feel like I'm tiptoeing on eggshells and can't fully express myself at work at home, and that's pretty much where I am all the fucking time, then no wonder we look for escape. No wonder we come home and start drinking 6 beers every night. And but this goes back to you staying true to yourself and just seeing those things as signs. So if I keep doing these little coping things, or if I'm feeling resentment, or if I'm feeling this frustration all the time, if I feel like I'm suffocating, then I've got to own that. You got to call yourself out on your own bullshit, and you got to So where am I not expressing myself? And it's probably at work and at home, because oftentimes it's easier for people just to say, my boss or co-worker's an asshole, my wife's she's bloody doing this, blah blah, than admit that we're not speaking up for ourselves and that it's our problem.
I have to do the opposite. I've got to check myself on being too expressive
before you wreck yourself.
Yeah, totally, man. And that's where my new relationship is really good, because she says to me, we don't need to talk about all of this to death.
Right.
It's just let it be. Just let it sit with it for a bit. And so it's pulling me back a little bit, and I'm still expressing and being emotive, but it's in that balance. It's not down that other end of the spectrum.
Finding your balance. All right, well, yes. I've got to jump off here in a few minutes, so we're going to really run through these last two.
So the next one says, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends, but it says they wouldn't realise the full benefits of old friends until their dying weeks. But it's also, don't stay in friendships just because you think you have to as well. So my best friends live far away, so I hardly ever see them. But when we do catch up, it's magic and it's awesome. So
yeah, I found relating to the current situation, a few people have been struggling because they haven't realised maybe how much they were getting from these social connections until they're gone. So all of a sudden, so it's like you might only be social for a couple of hours a week normally. But then, and you're like, oh yeah, that's fine, I see my friends, blah, blah. But now, isolation, and that goes down to zero. And all of a sudden you've got this weird feeling and you can't quite put your finger on it. And for a lot of people, I've found it's that. Because if you have like all these areas of your life, the classic wheel of life, and we want a nice balance, then all of a sudden that socials come right down. Then there's that internal out of balance kind of feeling going on there, and oftentimes it's that. And so I encourage people listening, like jump on Zoom, like jump on a call with some friends and have a bit of a laugh. I've got one tonight. I've got two of my best mates. We're jumping on a video call, and I know that I'll do that, and it's like that cup starts to get filled up.
It feeds the soul a bit.
Feeds the soul. What's number 5, Nico?
I wish that I had let myself be happier.
Let myself.
That's an interesting one, isn't it? Interesting terminology.
Yeah, you know what? I think that terminology, for me, how like when people are dying or they're getting old, they kind of stop giving a fuck, and a lot of them get a lot lighter.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think there's this realization, because when I've had really intense, experiences, call them transcendental, mystical, whatever you want to call it, where I have just felt this feeling of contentment and all that. For me, I've realized that I was the one stopping myself from feeling that. It's kind of this realization that, this has been here all the time. And I've been too caught up with all my bullshit over here. And so I wonder when people are getting to the end of their life, a lot of those layers get peeled back and they realize, oh shit, I spent decades preventing myself from being as happy as I could have been.
Well, yeah, I think they've run out of fucks to give. They've given away all their fucks, and they reach 70, and people call it, they don't have their filter anymore, but I think they've just run out of fucks. And
yes.
The Joker said it best, why so serious?
Yeah.
And we do get caught up in being very serious, so being light-hearted and fun, and the source of all pain is attachment. We're attached to what we believe should happen, which creates this seriousness and heaviness and da-da-da-da-da. So freeing ourselves from that can lead to being content. Happier is content.
And I've seen both, like with people that are older, not too far away from the end, and I've seen some who just no filter, but really like light, like just they're just amazing to be around. You're laughing all the time. You're having a great time. It's just it's a beautiful energy to interact with. And then I see older people who have gone the other way, and they must be still holding on, and they get really bitter. It's like it gets to the end. You got this choice: am I going to keep holding on, or am I just going to let go and let go of those last few fucks that I've got?
We've got to wrap up, but I'll tell you about client. 72 years old, and he's been holding on to something for 50 years.
Yeah.
And he's completely buckled and been out of shape. So, all right, coming up, we're going to have our first virtual guest, if we can organise that.
Whoa.
Yeah, so I've got a client who's 6 weeks into a 12-week program, and is an absolute legend, and I think he's got a lot that he can share and give to all the listeners.
Awesome.
So we'll tee that up, and then I want to do a suicide podcast as well.
We'll do that. We'll do a suicide podcast. That's a topic I'm very much like talking about as well. Even though it's a dark topic, it's one that we should be talking about more.
Yeah, well, I want to bring some stuff to the surface and change people's perception of it a bit, inform and educate people.
That would be fantastic. And I've got, I can't remember, but I had the last 2 weeks I've had people I've been speaking to, and I'm like, this would be a good person for a guest. So that'll come to me. So more guests. More topics, and Nico, pleasure as always. Polly is there for people watching on YouTube. Nick's beautiful dog Polly is there. Makes him want to get a puppy again.
Go and get better.
I think I'm healed, Nick. I think your beautiful energy has healed me. Or Polly. It might have been Polly's, actually. Bit of canine therapy. All right, mate. Pleasure as always. We'll see you all next week. Thank you for tuning in.
Peace.
Peace.